Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I'll be your host, Ian. I'm going to be guiding you through the webinar today. Today, we're going to be talking all about pitching. So I'm very glad that so many of you can make it. And we'll get started in just a moment. Before we do, I just want to explain what we're going to be doing real quickly. Today, I'm going to be taking you through an experience with pitching that I had recently, just the pitching process that I personally went through. The reason I'm doing this is because I think the best way to learn about pitching, besides doing it, is to see it in action. So that's what I'm going to be doing for you today. And if you have any questions, we will have a Q&A session at the end, at the very last slide, so stick around for that if you have any questions. We've gotten just so many questions about how to get started, and I think that is such a tricky question. And when I was starting out with freelance writing, it was very intimidating. And learning to pitch well and learning to be confident in how I approached publications really, really helped get my career off the ground. And I hope it's going to be doing the same for you. So without further ado, let's get started with the webinar today. So today we're going to be talking about how to pitch for profit without any previous experience. I'm going to be taking you step by step through the process that I personally went through. And if you, like I said, if you have any questions, we'll be addressing those at the end of the webinar. And let me emphasize that you do not need any experience whatsoever to get started. You have everything that you need right now. I think something that a lot of people don't realize is that pitching is a lot easier than it seems. It's a lot easier than you think. Pitching is something that's very intimidating at first, but in reality, when you start doing it, when you get accustomed to the language of pitching and the format of pitching and how you approach people, how you approach editors, it's really fairly easy. So if you are sitting there thinking, well, pitching a publication, that doesn't seem like something I could do. It seems really scary. Rest assured, it's not as scary as it seems. So my goal for today is, by the end of this webinar, to show you exactly how to pitch publications and may help you be more confident in how you're pitching. So my hope is that when we're done today, you'll be able to go off, use this knowledge almost immediately, put a little practice into your pitches, and then start pitching publications and getting jobs and getting articles. And as I mentioned, at the very last slide, we're going to be having a live Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and we'll be getting around to as many as we can. First, I want to address some little-known truths about pitching. These are things that I've picked up in my experience that I think a lot of people don't really talk about. First of all, as I said before, you don't need any experience to start. I think this is something that trips up a lot of writers because it's scary to pitch, especially if you don't have a lot of experience or any. You think, oh, am I really qualified to do this? Is a publication going to hire someone like me? But the truth is, you don't need any experience to start. It's all in how you pitch, and that's going to be something I will go over a little later on. You don't need any credentials. You don't need to have, a PhD or be an established position somewhere. It doesn't matter. Like I said, it's all in how you pitch, and that's something that writers don't really think about a lot, and it's not really something that is taught a lot. But it's something that I figured out. I started out as a college kid just pitching a bunch of publications, and I was able to get bylined articles in a ton of publications. So I'm a testament to the fact that you don't need any credentials to pitch and get articles. And you don't need to spend years perfecting your pitch. Now, I did because I didn't have any resources to use to develop my pitch. I didn't know where to look. I just had to use trial and error. But I'm hoping that this webinar is going to be the resource that you need to um, to get started and to help you cut down the time you spend refining your pitch. And you can start pitching today. This is something that also, like I said, a lot of writers, a lot of people don't really teach. A lot of people say that you need a lot of time refining your pitch. But in reality, you can start pitching today. So if you're hesitant about that, I hope that, like I said, I hope this webinar is the push that you need to get started, because you can do it. Because you already have the abilities right now to pitch and get published. You don't need to go out there and build a humongous portfolio. You don't need to go out there and get a super fancy, established, esteemed job. That's not necessary. Today, right now, you can pitch successfully and get published. And I'm going to show you exactly how I did that. So now let's look at the pitching process. Now, at first, the pitching process seems pretty simple. It's really 2 steps. Step 1 is just finding a publication, and the second step is just pitching the publication. Now, that seems deceptively simple, and the reason is that it sort of is. There are other steps within these 2 steps that we need to talk about, but generally, this is what the process looks like. You just find the publication and pitch the publication. Which brings me to a pitching secret that I'd like to share with you. I'm going to be sharing 3 of these secrets with you. That these are little known tips about pitching that I just picked up out of experience, and that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about these. First is, it's easy to find publications to pitch. This is something that intimidates a lot of writers. We get so many questions asking, where should I pitch article ideas, or what kind of publications should I be out on the look for? And there's no one answer to this question. There are many ways to find publications, but it's a lot easier than you think. And let's go through a few ways to find good publications for you to pitch. So yeah, step 1 is just finding the publication. And when you're looking for this, Google is your best friend. You might be surprised at how many publications you can find that are accepting articles and that will pay you well for articles just by going to Google and searching. It's really that easy. You go into Google and search, maybe something like travel blog, or finance blog, or finance writers guidelines, and you'll find a lot in there. It's a really good resource, and everyone knows how to use Google. So if you know how to use Google, you can get started finding publications today. It's really that simple. And as I mentioned this sort of already, but you want to be looking for writers guidelines pages. If you're unfamiliar with these are basically pages that blogs and publications set up if they're accepting articles. And what they do is tell prospective writers, writers who want to write for them, what rules to follow. Because every publication does things a little differently. So you want to make sure that you're following all the rules, doing everything you need to. And there can be consequences if you don't, and that's going to be something I'll address a little later on. But writers guidelines pages are the ones you want to be looking for, also called Write for Us, or submission guidelines, or editorial guidelines. They have several names, but that's the sort of page that you want to be on the look for. A great resource to find publications to pitch to is Freedom with Writing at freedomwithwriting.com. And if you're here, chances are you're familiar with Freedom with Writing. It's one of my favorite resources for finding writing jobs online. It rarely has let me down, if ever. And there is such a huge compendium of publications on there that you can spend hours and hours and hours finding jobs and getting to pitch them. And I'm going to be showing you how I used a Freedom with Writing resource to get published recently. And in fact, we're going to be sending out, since you're attending this webinar, and as a thank you for spending time with us and watching this webinar and hanging out, we're going to be sending you the Paid Publishing Guidebook. Now, if you're not familiar with this guidebook, it is a huge list of over 500 publications, and it also has their editorial contact information. So when I say that, I mean it has direct links to writers' guidelines pages for each publication. It's a fantastic resource. I can't speak highly enough of it. And this is the resource that I used to get published. It's one I use all the time. So if you don't know where to get started looking for publications to pitch, this is the definitive resource. Over 500. It's just insane. This has taken hours and hours to compile, and we're giving it to you for absolutely free. It's going to arrive in your email over the next couple days, and you're really going to get a lot out of this. But looking for publications and finding them isn't the entire process. And to help you understand that, I'd like to do a small case study, share with you a small case study about me. And I'm going to show you exactly what I did to get published, and you will be able to recreate what I did to get published. So the first thing I did was to find a publication, but it wasn't just as simple as looking through the guidebook and picking something at random. You really have to take an analytical process to it. So you have to think about which publications are right for you. You want to find at first about maybe 10 to 20 publications that you think might be a good fit. And you don't have to really think about this too much. Just find a few handfuls of publications that you resonate with. So if you write about technology, for instance, find some technology publications that seem like a good fit for you. But this should not be the final list that you work with, because sometimes you'll think that a publication is good for you and then it just won't be. So you need to narrow it down. And there are a few criteria that I use for determining if I'm really a good fit for a publication. First of all, you should be comfortable with the topic. This is absolutely crucial. If you're not comfortable with the topic, if you feel like you can't write about it naturally, then you're going to have a hard time coming up with ideas. You're going to have a hard time writing the article if you get accepted. It's just going to be difficult overall. So you want to at least have some knowledge of the topic. Some sort of experience with it. You don't have to have professional experience. You just have to, you basically know what you're writing about. And you also want to be familiar with the niche in the community. So for instance, let's say you want to pitch a gardening publication. Ideally, you would have some sort of experience in gardening, whether that's doing it yourself or being just very familiar with it. And then you want to understand the community around it and the niche of gardening as a whole. And you don't need to have like an in-depth knowledge of every little detail about this topic. You don't need to be a definitive expert on it, but you do need to have some sort of knowledge or experience. And this one is really important, and I feel like a lot of writers don't pay enough attention to this. You need to be okay with how much the publication pays. Publications pay, there are so many different rates, and not all of them are equal. There are a lot of publications that are that don't pay you that well. Unfortunately, writing, a lot of writing doesn't pay as well as it used to anymore. There are still a lot of good paying jobs out there, but you have to really look for them. And that's something I'm going to be addressing later on throughout the webinar. And real quick, I should say, when I say publication, I'm referring to anything from a blog to a print magazine to an online magazine to a newspaper, anything that is circulated in some fashion and that you can write for. So just to clear that up in case that's sort of a vague word. So yeah, these are the 4 basic criteria that I like to use when looking for publications. And I'm going to show you exactly how this played out for me. So I was looking for places to submit articles recently, and I was using the Paid Publishing Guidebook. This what you're seeing right now is a screenshot directly from the guidebook itself. I came across this blog, and I know a lot about blogging, and I know a lot about you know, uh, the marketing and things that go into that. And when I saw this listing, I was like, this seems like a good fit for me. And it followed all the criteria. Let me go back to this real quick. I was comfortable with the topic. I had a lot of experience with blogging. I'm familiar with the community around it and the niche as a whole. I stay up to date with that, and I was okay with how it paid. $75 per post. And I'll get into the price even later on in more detail. But what I did was I clicked on that little blue link to read their submission guidelines. And this is part of why I love the guidebook so much, is that it just has all the information you need right there. Direct links to the writer's guidelines pages. You don't have to go looking. It's wonderful. So I just clicked on this, and before I show you that, I do want to impress the fact that you need to read the writer's guidelines. So many writers do not read writer's guidelines pages. I've talked with many editors in the past, and a lot of them have thanked me for reading the writer's guidelines, because a lot of writers just don't. And it's amazing how easy it is for editors to tell if somebody has read the guidelines or not. And this is just so important, and I'll show you why in this example. So this was the page that I ended up on, the Write For Us page, contributor guidelines, perfect. And then it said, accepting pitches for paid contributions, that's great. Notice the underlined text here, and this is actually a link. We have created a set of guidelines on how to pitch and how to write for us once your pitch has been accepted. And it said it will open a PDF in a new tab. And so I opened it, read through it. I'm not going to show you that because they're sort of extensive, but it just included a style guide, information about images and copyright and things of that nature. A very full set of guidelines about what they were looking for, what kind of topics they want. And that's so important because certain publications are after very specific topics. And if you pitch something that is a little outside of what they want, you probably won't get accepted. And that doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you're talking about pitching, 20, 30 times a week, if you really want to get serious about it, that can add up to a lot of wasted time. So you want to make sure that you are following every stipulation that the publication has set forth. And this section was a little further down on the same page. So I just scrolled down and I saw this, and I thought this was interesting. This was a very thorough guide because not only were the guidelines thorough, but they gave additional tips. And so they have, a few brief bullet points here about, how much it pays, unique content, the fact that they want to pitch rather than a post, and then familiarize yourself with the blog. And I'll get into that the idea of reading publications and studying them later on. We'll address that. And then there's one thing that I think is really important here, and a lot of writers' guidelines pages won't have this, but it will still remain true, and that's in this little red box here. It says, because of the volume of pitches we receive, anything that doesn't follow the contributor guidelines or the additional tips above will be deleted. So that means there are a ton of guidelines you have to follow to the letter, or else they will just delete your post and or your email rather. And a lot of publications will do this. Pretty much every publication does this. If you don't follow every little stipulation, then you will never hear back. It will just be deleted on the spot. And this is because, the average publication gets so many pitches that they just can't afford, they can't spend the time to look at every single pitch. So this is really important. If you don't follow the guidelines, you probably will not get published. And it can really mean the difference between acceptance and rejection. So I can't stress this point enough. So after this, so this leads me into a second pitching secret, and that is it's easy to make your pitch stand out. Because after I did this, I was making my pitch. I was readying it to go out, and there are a lot of pitch secrets that I've picked up over the years that I'd like to share with you. And this is really important as well because so many pitches are just the same template, hashed out over and over again. There are not a lot of unique pitches out there, but I think that with a little effort, you'll be able to make your pitch more unique than 99% of your competition. So the second step in the process that we talked about earlier is pitching the publication. And you want to read the publication. I cannot stress this enough either. In the writer guidelines you saw a couple slides back, it said familiarize yourself with the blog. And this is really important. When it gets down to it, whether you get accepted or rejected will often be because of how familiar you are with the publication. And the reason for this is that today publications are after very specific articles. Every publication wants articles that are tailor-made solely for them. So most publications are not looking for general articles that could go on any publication. They want specific things that have their specific audience in mind. So whenever you pitch, you're really promising to custom make a piece of content for the publication. And so this is why simultaneous submissions can sometimes be a problem, because if you pitch more than one publication at a time, it probably means your article is pretty general and not specified to one publication. And it kind of seems a little non-intuitive at first, but the more experience you have, the more you'll realize that this is really the case. Whenever I've pitched more general articles, 9 out of 10 times I've gotten rejected. But whenever I pitch very specific articles, whenever I take time to read the publication and think of ideas based on what they already have published, I almost always get my pitches accepted and published. So you want to read through the publication and use it as sort of a springboard to brainstorm ideas. And you want to analyze the articles. You want to think about what kind of topics the publication posts about. You want to see their style. What tone of voice are they using? What angles do they take? Things of this nature. These are really, really important and can make all the difference. The next step is just to come up with article ideas. You want to refine your ideas. I'd say come up with maybe 5 to 10. And in the end, you want to pitch just one idea. Pitching more than one idea at first can lead to a cluttered, cramped pitch, and it can also make your pitch less clear to the editor. So for simplicity's sake, you just want to pitch one idea. So let's say that this is all well and good. You've done all of this and it's no problem. Now it's actually time for you to create the pitch. And this is a whole topic into itself. We've done so many webinars on this before. There's just so much that we can talk about. So I'm going to cover it very briefly. First of all, and I think this is the most important element, your pitch should be short and concise. I've seen so many long pitches that are like 5 humongous paragraphs. And when I started out, I thought this was the right approach. I actually recently went back and looked at some of my earliest pitches, and they were so long, I was sort of embarrassed. And my thought process was the same thought process that pretty much every writer, I think, has. A longer pitch seems like it would be better because it provides more detail, and it can help position you as an expert more so. But the further along I got in my career, the more I realized that this was just not the case. And it was really weird for me to think about, because I thought that, I was just doing the right thing. I didn't think a short pitch would be enough to persuade somebody to publish my articles. But that's exactly the case. The reason editors just don't have time to read long pitches, they're going to be much happier reading a short, concise pitch than something long and drawn out. And just don't write a novel. Something that I tell writers a lot is not to write the article in your pitch. And so many writers do that. They want to include detail, and that's understandable. But you have to resist that urge and make it short. And when I say short, I mean about 2 to 3 paragraphs maximum. I'm going to actually be showing you a pitch that I wrote and used to get published, and we'll analyze that a little bit later on. But 2 to 3 paragraphs is about what I would say. Really, the shorter, the better. I aim for 2 main paragraphs that are about 2 to 3 sentences each and just describe the article in detail. And then, I have an introduction and a conclusion, but it's pretty simple. It's not a novel. Uh, and so the second bonus that I want to send your way is the Bulletproof pitch template. This is a template that you can use to get published. And basically, that's it. It sounds really simple, but there's a lot of experience that went into this. This pitch template is based on my own pitches. I've just taken every successful pitch that worked for me and condensed it into this template so that you don't have to spend any time perfecting your pitch. I'm just going to lay it out in front of you, and you'll be able to take it, just almost fill in the blanks, customize it a little bit, and you'll be good to go. So this is going to arrive in your email over the next couple of days. No further action required. Just as a thank you for attending the webinar and as our way of helping you out. And this can make all the difference, because when I was starting out, the pitch templates that I found were all pretty long, or some of them I just didn't like. They had maybe too formal language, or something was just off with them. So I'm hoping that this pitch template is going to be sort of the definitive pitch template. It's worked for me so many times, gotten me so many well-paying jobs, and I hope it will do the same for you. So before we move on, let me give you some assorted tips on pitching. This is a small detail, but you have no idea how monumental of a difference it can make. Simply find out which editor you're pitching to. You don't want to whom it may concern. The reason: you want to prove that you've done your homework. It is really easy to figure out. In most cases, it's very easy to figure out which editor you're pitching to. And addressing them by name can really show that A, you care about the publication, B, you care enough to do the research to find out that editor's name. And it just gives a more professional, formal approach. So many pitches just start out with, dear editor, or to whom it may concern, or, dear sir, or dear madam, or something like that. And a lot of editors will delete those pitches on the spot, because they know that the writer hasn't done their research. So this little tip can make a huge amount of difference. And if this sounds confusing, if you're not sure how to do this, don't worry, because I'm going to be showing you exactly how. Okay, next, focus on the benefits that your article will provide for the publication. A lot of writers think that a pitch is the time for them to sort of gloat about their accomplishments, or kind of fluff themselves up and explain why they're such a good writer. And the hope is that by saying how good of a writer you are, the publication will want your article. However, this is not the case, because a publication, or an editor for that matter, doesn't really care how good of a writer you are. They care if you deliver a good product, a good article, and if your article will benefit them. And I will explain this a little later on in more detail. But for now, keep a benefit mindset focused on. So don't think about how good of a writer you are, or how much experience you have necessarily. You want to think about how your article is going to benefit the publication, what it's going to do, what value it will bring. You want to include your portfolio if you have one, and you do want to explain why you're the best writer for the job, but you don't want to go over the top. You want to mainly focus on the benefits, and then almost as an aside kind of say, and this is why I should do it, or a little about me, or something like that, because a publication will want to make sure that you are the best writer for the job. But you have to do this after you focus on the benefits. That's very important. You want to frame the conversation so that it focuses on the publication, and then you say, I can help you out because I'm such and such. So don't let that override the focus on the benefits. And you want to end by starting a conversation. This is a tip that I just sort of did once or twice, almost by accident. And then I realized how well it worked, because a lot of writers will just end their pitches with, I hope to hear back, or just like thank you, or something like that. And if you end by starting a conversation, it does so much. And I'll show you an example of that in my pitch. You want to follow up if you haven't heard back, of course. As a rule of thumb, about 1 to 2 weeks for a medium or small blog, and maybe 2 to 4 weeks for a large site or publication. It's worth noting that a lot of writers' guidelines pages will specify when you should follow up, so you want to pay attention to that. So now I'm going to show you the process that I went through. So as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to submit an article to this blog called Blog Pause. And this is the one that I found in the paid publishing guidebook earlier on. So what I did was, in the guidelines, it didn't say who to address the pitch to. A lot of writers' guidelines pages will say, address your inquiries to, so-and-so, the editor. But in this case, I didn't find that. So I did a little research. I went up to their About Us tab, and then the drop-down menu, I selected Team. And that led me to a few listings, but the one that caught my eye was the one that says Senior Editor. So I knew that she was the person that I should be in contact with. And then if you look in the smaller text, it says she manages the Blog Pause blog. So I knew that this was the individual that I needed to be in contact with. And it took like 2 seconds, and it made all the difference, because now I could say, "Hi, Maggie," instead of just "Dear Editor." So this is the pitch that I sent out. And this was pretty recent, December 28th. So here's what I said. "Hi, Maggie. I came across Blog Pause, and I love the mission it promotes. Blah, blah, blah." And then I want to call attention to these 3 middle paragraphs. Check out this first one. "My article will explain why readers should invest some time in creating long-form guides for their blogs. I'll go over how content like this can help sites rank better and give a blog more authority and value to visitors." Now, you don't have to know what a long-form guide is or what ranking is to understand that. Just focus on the format of this. So I said, "My article will explain why readers should blank, blank, blank. And then I'll go over how blank, blank, blank." So this is sort of setting up what my plan is for the article. And then I said, "I'll discuss how to create the guides." And then maybe that would be better for a separate post. And then I said, "I'll also point to examples like this one." And I linked an example of what I was talking about. And this already showed, these 2 little lines, or sections rather, right here, showed already that I knew a lot about the subject. I knew, the terminology. I knew I was very thorough in my approach. I linked to an example. So this all showed that I knew what I was talking about. And this is very simple. You just have to explain what your article is going to do for the readers, what you're going to talk about. And if there's any examples you want to point to, that's fine, but it's really as simple as that. So the next section, I said a little about me. I'm a freelance writer, blah, 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 with my credentials, and I linked to my portfolio. And this just gives a little background about my experience and shows that I've been a published writer, and it gives me a little edge. Now, I mentioned before you don't need experience, and that's completely true. If you don't have any experience formally in the niche, all you want to do is just say, "I have experience. I'm very passionate about the subject. I've done this and that and the other." Because if you can just say you've done things related to this niche, or if you have some sort of experience, that's usually going to be more than enough. Just let the editor know what experience you have. And notice how short this is too. And in fact, notice how short my whole pitch is. This is the sort of pitch that you want to make if you want to get published. And then I ended with saying, before I said thank you, I ended with saying, "I can have this ready in a week. Does that sound good?" So notice what I did there. I ended by starting a conversation. I asked, "Does that sound good to you? Does that deadline work?" And that creates, that opens a dialogue. Because so many editors, even if they reject you, they will respond if you just ask a question. Now, imagine that I had just gone from, "You can view my portfolio here," to "Thank you for taking the time to consider this." I'm not starting in that case, I wouldn't be starting any sort of conversation with the editor. It wouldn't be anywhere like as effective, because the editor would have less of a reason to respond. So this is a small tip, but it's so important. So feel free to come back to this later on in the replay if you want to study this more, but we'll move on for now. part leads me to pitching secret number 3, and that is it's easy to talk to editors. This seems really intimidating, but I'm going to show you just how easy it is. So what happened was the editor emailed me back, said this sounds like a great fit, asked if I had a chance to review the guidelines, and then said, we can move forward if so. So I responded, I have indeed, and I appreciate the thoroughness of it because it is a rare treat to see a guidelines page that thorough. But you could just say, yes, I have, and everything looks good. I'm ready to go. And then notice I ended with a question again. What do you need from me next? I'm making sure to keep the conversation going so that there's no idleness. Now, what happened was after this, I actually didn't hear back for about 5 or 6 days. So my next email was, hi, Maggie, I just wanted to follow up on this. If you'd still like to run the article, I'd love to hear more details about moving forward. Very short, just one line follow-up, about 5 days later. And I got a response, just saying, sorry, we've been really busy. And then it was all set. Let's set a deadline. I can answer any questions, talking about deadlines and timelines and publication dates. And that was it. And I was in. So that's the entire pitching process. It seems like a lot on paper, but when you carry it out, it's actually pretty simple and intuitive and straightforward. And that's everything that I did to get published. So that's why I set the webinar up this way, is because I wanted to show you first the concepts behind pitching well, and then I wanted to move along to a real life case study of exactly what I did to get published and why it worked so well. So I hope this has been useful so far. We still have quite a ways to go, but for right now, I hope this has given you some clarity into the publication process. If you have any questions, make sure to ask them, and we'll stick around for that live Q&A in just a bit. So I hope this has been really helpful for you, but I know that I haven't gone super in depth. And since we only have about an hour together, out of respect for your time, I just, I've packed this webinar with as much information as I can, but it's not everything. So my question is just, do you want to learn even more about pitching? Are you interested in, learning the finer details of what goes on? And when I mean fine, I mean extremely fine, picked through with a fine-tooth comb. If that interests you, then I have a special offer for you that I hope you will take us up on. The reason just being, I know pitching can be so confusing, and one of the reasons, the main reason that we started Writing Launch in the first place is to provide writers with the training that they deserve, because there's not a lot out there that is comprehensive and in-depth, and there are a lot of things that you only learn from experience unless someone with experience tells you. And if I had known this, I would have been able to cut a solid year or even 2 years. I would have been able to advance that far. So basically, by taking advantage of this training, you'll have 1 to 2 years of experience already under your belt. So really briefly, I wanted to talk about the Bulletproof pitching system, because if you liked what you saw today, then you're going to love this. We've put together this course because pitching is such an important topic. One of the reasons for that is that today, in this day and age, most of the articles you'll get will be, from online blogs or digital magazines. And pitching looks a lot different today than it did 10, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago. It's always changing. And so we wanted to create something truly comprehensive, truly thorough, something that would hold your hand and walk you through the entire process step by step. So it's basically what you saw in this webinar, but even more detailed and a lot more content. So we go into everything. And I wanted to just describe it for you really quickly in case you're interested. And I should note, if you have any questions about the course, feel free to ask those in the Q&A as well. So here's what you'll learn in the pitching system. We're going to be going over pitching 101. So this is just the basics. We're going to expand upon a lot of things that we talked about today. It's just going to walk you through step by step and show you the absolute basics of pitching. And this builds a foundation for everything else to follow. A lot of writers, have some of these advanced tricks up their sleeve, but they don't have that foundational knowledge to bring it all together. And trust me when I say that that can make all the difference. We also go over how to write and send pitches. So it's more than just a template. Like I said, we're sending you that template, but that is not always the best choice for you because it's not your own pitch. It can help you a lot, but if you learn to write your own and how to send them off on your own, you'll be fully independent. You'll have a lot more knowledge of what goes into a pitch, and it's going to be a much more thorough experience for you. And it's a good skill to have in the long run as a writer. And it certainly helped me quite a bit. We also go over advanced pitching techniques. So these are little known tips like the ones I shared with you today, but even more detailed and even more little known. And these are things that, like I said, I've just picked up through experience. So my hope is that by sharing these techniques with you, I'll be able to help you advance more in your career in less time. So you'll accomplish in, maybe a few months what it takes other writers a year or 2 years to accomplish. You'll have that sort of knowledge. Okay. And I think this is one of the best aspects of the course. We have what we call pitching week. This is the fourth and last week of the course. And what happens is we structure the course so that you are sending out pitches all week. So this is a very hands-on course. You're not just going to be sitting back and reading text and watching lectures. That's not going to be it. You're going to be actively participating in the course, and I'm going to provide coaching for the pitches. So for the last 5 days of the course, you are just sending out pitches all week long, and this is designed to get you get hands-on experience with pitching. So if you need a boost to get started, and if you need a group to help inspire you, this is what pitching week is for. And it's something that we've gotten a lot of great comments on in the past, and I think it really helps because you get a taste for what it's really like to pitch, and you don't just sit around and say, oh, I think it would be cool to pitch. You actually go out there and do it. And the total time that we'll spend together is 4 weeks. That's 4 weeks of step-by-step instruction and in-depth content, just like what you saw in today's webinar, going over minute details to big concepts and everything in between. And normally that's what we include in the course. Like in the Bulletproof pitching system itself, that's usually everything that comes with the package. However, we want to go above and beyond to provide the most value that we can for you. I know there are a lot of courses out there. There are a lot of people who say they know everything, but a lot of them don't put their money where their mouth is. So what I want to do is offer you even more value because we care about helping you get published and making a living as a writer. That's what we want to help you do. So to that effect, and I should note that this course itself is a $247 value. That's the price of the course itself normally. So the first bonus I'm going to be including is the pitch recipe. In this video, you're going to learn what goes into a successful pitch, and you're going to learn how to analyze your pitches to make them even better. So as you might be able to tell from the title, in this video, I go through the different ingredients of a pitch and explain why they work together. I explain what makes a successful pitch successful. And you'll be able to use these tips to analyze your own pitches, see what works and see what doesn't, and improve them. And this is normally a $47 value, but it's going to be yours for free when you sign up for the course. And you're going to get it immediately after joining. So you don't need to wait. You'll have instant access to it, so you can start learning about pitching before the course actually starts. So that's the first bonus, and this is a very helpful resource that I put a lot of effort into. And if you want to get really into the nitty-gritty of how to improve your pitches, then you definitely want to take advantage of this bonus. But that's not everything. Like I said, we want to add as much value as we possibly can. So we're going to be throwing in a second bonus, which is a pitch analysis video. And this goes one step beyond the pitch recipe video that I just talked about. This is an exclusive video of a writing launch pitching workshop that we held about a year ago. We got a handful of pitches together from writers who are members in our Writing Launch program, Writing Launch students. And I took their pitches and analyzed them and broke them down and explained what worked and what didn't. And it's a very in-depth video. I go into a lot of fine details, and it really helps to see specific examples of real-world pitches that writers are using and writing. And you can, like I said, you can study pitches from writers just like you. These are pitches from writers who want to get published but don't know how, and they want to refine and streamline their pitches. You hear pro advice on the finer details of pitching, and I mean really fine. And you'll get specific insight into what works and what doesn't. This is normally a $97 value, but we're also going to throw it in for free when you sign up for the course. And this is another bonus that you'll get immediately after joining the course. So you're going to get both the pitch recipe and the pitch analysis video. So everything that you'll get is that you'll get all the 4 modules of the course, the 4 weeks. Week 1 is Pitching 101. Week 2 is Writing and Sending Pitches. Week 3 is Advanced Pitching Techniques. Week 4 is Pitching Week. And then those 2 bonuses where I go over what makes up a good pitch, and then where I analyze real world pitches. But you know what? That's not all either. I want to throw in one last bonus for you because I really believe in the effectiveness of this system. This is something that we've put, blood, sweat, and tears into, and I think it shows. And we get so many good comments about this, and I truly believe that it will help you step your pitching game up and get published like crazy. So what I want to do is throw in a 3rd bonus, and this is going to be a live pitching workshop. You're going to be able to attend a live pitching workshop where you can submit your own pitches and get advice on them from us. You're going to get extensive feedback to help you get published in your specific case. We'll also have another live Q&A that goes over pitches. And you will even be able to save the video for later. So essentially what I'm going to be doing is just taking a bunch of your pitches for those of you who are new students in the course and analyzing them, helping you out, helping you solve your problems. And we can get very one-on-one. Even though it'll be in a group setting, you'll get personalized feedback from us. And this is normally another $97 value, but it's going to be yours free. Now, this won't be available immediately, but we will have this during the course. So if you want to get personalized feedback on your pitches from people who have successfully pitched tons of publications and who know what works, then you are not going to want to miss this. And it's only available to new students in the Bulletproof pitching system. So everything you get is the 4-week course, normally a $247 value, the pitch recipe, which is $47, the pitch analysis, which is $97, live workshop is $97, and that's a total value of $488. But you will not pay $488 for this. You won't even pay $388 or $288. You're going to get the 4-week Bulletproof pitching system course, pitch recipe, the pitch analysis, the live pitching workshop, normally a $488 value, and it can be yours for $197. And the reason that we're offering this is so low is because we want to make this as accessible as possible. So we don't want to charge $488 for this. We're just asking $197 for all this knowledge and all this training, hands-on, in-depth, personalized training. If that sounds like something you're interested in, and I hope it is, if you have any questions about it, please let me know. But by all means, if this is something you're interested in, please consider taking advantage of it. We are here to help you out. We want to make this as accessible as possible, as affordable as possible. So we're only asking $197 for all of this. And that includes, like I said, the course, the pitch recipe, the pitch analysis, and the live pitching workshop. You get all of that for one small price. And there's also a 30-day no-risk money-back guarantee. So if you are a little nervous about taking the course, if you're not sure, don't worry. For 30 days, you'll be able to get your money back, no questions asked. So there's no risk involved if it doesn't work out for you. And if you're interested in this, visit writinglaunch.com. It's going to be open. It's open now for enrollment, and you can sign up there, get more information about the course, and if you make it over, we will be so happy to welcome you into our community. If you can't, no worries at all. But if that's something, if pitching is something that you are really serious about and that you want to pursue, and if you want to make a career out of getting articles published in publications, then this is going to be a system that is worth its weight in gold. Especially considering the lower price. So I hope this is something that you'll be able to take advantage of, and I hope you'll be able to join us. Now, at this point, let's go into the Q&A because I don't want to leave you guys hanging. I want to answer as many of your questions as I can. Oops, let me turn this off. And there we go. Okay, so let me look through the questions you guys have been asking and try to answer as many as possible. Christopher Gordon, how common is it a pitch is rejected only then to be written by another writer? Okay, this is a good question. This is something that a lot of writers have a fear of, is that if you pitch something, how do you know that the publication isn't just going to steal your idea? There's no one answer to this, I think, because it definitely does happen, but I should note that it only happens with publications that don't have a good reputation. 80%, 90% of the publications that you will pitch will be trustworthy about that. And another element that factors into this is that if a publication doesn't think that a pitch is good, they're just not going to use the idea. If they do think the pitch is good, if you've established yourself as an authority, then they will want to hire you to write it for them. They won't want to go to someone else to write it. So the short answer is that it just sort of uses the honor system, but it's a problem that doesn't happen as much as you'd think. It's a very rare outlier. So I hope that gives you a little confidence in doing that. Here's a question from Ginger Hughes. What if you don't have a portfolio? That's a great question. This is something that we also address in the pitching system. What I recommend generally, the short answer, is to get guest posts on blogs and just start pitching, just even if you don't have a portfolio. Basically go through the process that I described. And like I said, if you don't have any experience, formally, you just have to elucidate what experience you have. So even if you just say, I've done such and such, or, this is my hobby, I've been doing it for X amount of years or whatever, that is usually more than enough. Because as long as you demonstrate your knowledge of the subject, you'll be good to go. You don't necessarily need a portfolio. It really, really helps, and you should really work to build one. But if you're just starting out, don't let that stop you. Just say what experience you do have, and that is usually more than enough, as long as you pitch well. That's really what matters, because there are a lot of writers who have a lot of great credentials who pitch very badly. So keep that in mind. Let's see. Other questions. Oh, here's a question we have from Chipo Mupanisi. I hope I pronounced that right. Thank you for the tips on pitching. However, would the course be more content specific? Okay, this is a question we get a lot. So Chipo asks, I would like to think that the pitching challenges with which I face as a writer from Africa might be slightly different. So the question here is basically, does your location dependent on does your success pitching depend on your location? We get a lot of writers from all around the world asking, can I pitch from Thailand, or will I be able to make a writing career in Nigeria or Vietnam or China or South America or wherever? And one of the best things about freelance writing is that there is no location requirement. There are people working from all over the world pitching every day successfully, so your location does not matter. So no matter where you live in the world, you'll be able to use everything that we talk about in this course. Everything from where to find publications to getting paid to everything. I do agree that getting paid is somewhat of a different issue, but you'll be able to use 99.9% of what we say in the course. So if your location is something that's worrying you, don't let it, because there are absolutely no limitations when it comes to where you live. Here's a good question from Charles Oboot. I hope I pronounced that right as well. Is it better to build up a writing niche in a particular area or to pitch in as many areas as one can? And this is a great, great question. I'm glad you asked, Charles. The short answer, I think, is that it's better to focus in one or two specific areas. The reason is because if you specialize, you're going to almost always get more jobs than someone who takes a more general approach. The reason is if you know one or two subjects really well, you're going to be able to write really fluently in those. You're going to be able to write about a wide variety of things within that niche. If you go more general, you'll be more limited in what you can write about. Your writing won't sound as natural, and editors will be able to tell as well, because you can have a lot of experience in a niche and have no credentials, and an editor will still be able to tell that you're a good writer for the job. So I would say focus on 1 to 2 niches at first. If you want to branch out from there, by all means do so, but make sure you're comfortable with the niche and that you know it pretty well. So let's get, since it's approaching the hour mark, so let's get one last question in, and then we'll close out. Here's a question from Stacy Yeager. If I want to do this full time, what would you suggest I do when we are just starting out so we can have a decent flow of offers? Again, this is where I think pitching comes in very handy. When you're just starting out, it can be intimidating to know where to go and to get writing jobs regularly. One of the best ways to get a guaranteed work is to pitch publications. The reason is because publications in general will assign more work than, say, if you were to approach a client, try to get someone like an individual or a company to write for. Publications, they publish things. That's just what they do. So naturally, they're going to be needing a lot of content, and there are never enough writers to create all that content. They can always use more. So if you're starting out and if you want to do it full time, I would say put all your effort into pitching. And by all means, don't make that the only thing that you do, but you definitely want to focus on it. And I think that's part of the reason that this course is so helpful to so many people, is because pitching publications is one of the best ways to make a living. I make my living, my writing living, all of my writing income exclusively from writing for blogs. So, that all started with a pitch, and I've gotten long-term relationships with several blogs and gotten many opportunities from it. So I think it's the best way to build a career as a writer in this day and age. That's what my experience has shown me. And I think you'll find that true as well. All the writers I talk to, they say almost identical things. So pitching is something that you really can't focus on enough. It's a great skill to have as a writer. Even if you know how to pitch, but you just want to brush up, there's something for everyone. So yeah, I think with that, on that note, we're going to close out the webinar. I hope it's been really helpful for you. If you have any more questions that we didn't get around to, feel free to email us at support@writinglaunch.com or leave a comment. We'll get around to it. And I just want to say thank you for attending. If you are interested in the course, like I said, you can sign up at writinglaunch.com. It's available now to sign up. If you have any questions, we'll make sure to answer those as well. But I hope this has been a really helpful hour for you. And we're going to be sending this out so you can rewatch it later. Please rewatch it, learn from it. And if you use these tips and you successfully get published, please email us and tell us, because we love hearing success stories. We hope to help you out as much as possible. So we will be around for a while to answer more questions. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.